Using a fleet of 225 C-54s, he hatches a plan to outsmart the Soviets. Tunner's airlift drops 2.3 million pounds of supplies. 11 months later, the Soviet Union lifts the blockade, its stranglehold on West Berlin defeated.
April 1982, the Falkland Islands. Nearly 220 years of territorial disputes finally come to a head. Argentinian President Leopoldo Galtieri invades the small British island, claiming it for his own. 8,000 miles away, Britain mobilizes its fleet of carriers. On deck, a brand new acquisition, the Sea Harrier, made especially for the Royal Navy. British pilots know going in that the Argentinian Air Force will be tough opponents.
The Argentines could field about 180 fast jet aircraft against our 21 Sea Harriers.
Lieutenant Commander David Morgan was a Harrier pilot during the Falklands War.
The Argentines had the Mirage 3, which had twice the speed of the Sea Harrier, 50% height advantage, and a missile with a head-on shot twice as long as the Sidewinders that we were carrying. They also had a large number of A4 Skyhawk fighter bombers. We knew we were going to have a hard job.
June 8th, the HMS Hermes, 10 weeks into the war. Morgan and his wingman take off and head for the islands. Morgan and his wingman arrive to find a horrifying scene. 2 British ships have been attacked by Argentine Skyhawks. Morgan's first thought, that the Argentines will be back to finish the job. The Harriers keep watch for 40 long minutes. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Morgan spots trouble.
To my absolute horror, saw about half a mile to the east a line of 4 aircraft, obviously running into attack. The only imperative now was to try and shoot down those aircraft.
Morgan has just seconds to react. Years of training allow muscle memory to kick in fast.
Locked the missile onto him. The missile locked straight away, fired it immediately, and it came off my port wing and went straight up the guy's jet pipe and just vaporized the aircraft.
That's 1 Skyhawk down, but there's 3 more to go.
As I rolled the aircraft back upright again after the first missile shot, I was pointing directly at him. Locked my second missile. The missile followed him and took him out at 90 degrees.
There's 2 aircraft left, but Morgan is out of missiles. He turns to climb and hopes that his wingman has his back.
I looked back over my shoulder in the climb and saw my wingman fire a missile. A few seconds later, there was a massive explosion as it hit the Skyhawk.
The last Skyhawk sees the writing on the wall. When the Harriers look around, he's nowhere to be found. Less than 2 hours after takeoff, the Harriers are back on their carrier with 3 kills under their belt.
By the time the conflict was over, the whole world thought the Sea Harrier was great. In fact, the Argentine started referring to us as the Muerte Negra, the Black Death. And if they knew Sea Harriers were in the area, they would quite often turn the raids back.
The Sea Harrier has a staggering success rate, downing 21 enemy aircraft with no air-to-air losses.
100 miles from the Marine airfield in Camp Bastion. A small village is taken over by a local warlord, a safe haven for his drug operation. Money from poppy sales flows to the Taliban to buy equipment and weapons used to kill American troops. The plan? To fly to the center of the remote village and insert 100 Marines to capture the warlord in broad daylight. The operation is risky. The Taliban has been timing U.S. aircraft. The insurgents know exactly how far and how fast the Americans can travel. They'll have weapons at the ready, and Marines know it. The Marines are banking on the Osprey's speed, allowing them to slip by the Taliban's lookouts. 4 V-22s take off. The Marines arrive at the village undetected. Once the Osprey touches down, things will move quickly. In just a matter of seconds, the Ospreys drop to the ground and unload 100 well-armed Marines. The warlord never stands a chance. In under 5 minutes, he's in custody and sitting in the Osprey. The capture is a triumph for Marines in Afghanistan. A deadly threat to their mission is locked away, all thanks to the Osprey. 1985. The Pentagon. The U.S. military has been locked into a Cold War with the Soviet Union for nearly 40 years. Russia versus the U.S. Spy versus spy. Each determined to gain control of the ultimate high ground, space.
The Soviets would put up satellites frequently, take pictures, and very, very accurately keep up with United States military forces. They could very quickly launch satellites in a matter of hours and launch a lot of them.
The Pentagon sees the satellites as a dangerous threat to national security. In theory, the F-15 made sense.
It was powerful enough that it could carry a 3,000-pound rocket, and it could carry it to the altitudes and at the velocities that would allow the rocket to launch and go up into space.
It sounds like science fiction, but it was a very real plan with very high stakes. The satellite chosen for destruction, an out-of-date American research satellite called P-78-1. The man chosen to destroy it, Major General Pearson. September 13th, 1985, Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. At 12:40 in the afternoon, Pearson straps into his F-15. There's a 2,700-pound, 18-foot-long missile mounted to the jet's centerline. This is actual video from his flight. The satellite is 345,000 feet above the Earth. It's moving at 23,000 feet per second. Once his F-15 reaches 30,000 feet, Pearson has just a 10-second window to fire the missile. If his timing is off, he'll miss it completely.
Mark waypoint 2 at 0.86 Mach.
Rocketing into the air, Pearson pulls the F-15 into a steep climb. At 35,000 feet, he fires. An infrared honing device on the rocket guides it as it heads into the sky. F-15 has done what no other plane has been able to do: conquer the heavens. Shooting down the satellite sends a strong message to the Soviets.
High over Afghanistan, Major Derek Baker and his KC-135 crew pump gas into a leaking F-16. Fuel sprays out of the F-16's engine. Without constant refueling, the F-16's pilot may have to bail.
Essentially, at that point, we're just feeding his engines and trying to keep his tank at the current level so that he doesn't run out of gas.
The KC-135 and the F-16 fly connected through enemy skies. One sudden move from either aircraft could spell disaster.
We did have a lot to worry about. As you can imagine, having two aircraft really close to each other, in fact, actually touching each other, and then conducting air refueling over enemy territory, you're going to have some danger.
It's 30 minutes to the border. Plenty of time for something to go wrong.
We were a lot slower and less maneuverable. We're also looking out to make sure nobody decides to start shooting at us as well.
Finally, the airbase is within sight. The F-16 disconnects and descends downward. Baker makes a radio call and confirms. Mission accomplished. The jet is safely on the ground.
It felt really good to know that we were part of saving the aircraft and also the bigger part, the pilot's life.
With the F-16 safe on the ground, the tanker crew turns its attention towards the next mission.
Everybody's always going to need gas. It's high demand, and right after he got on the ground, after a quick high five, we went off to another refueling and continued the day.
The B-52, it's a legend among aircraft. For more than half a century, it's led the way in every major U.S. bombing campaign.
So this is the B-52H Stratofortress. Here in the community, we call it the BUF, which stands for Big Ugly Fat Fellow, although that acronym is open to interpretation.
The B-52 is 156 feet long, 40 feet tall. Each wing measures 4,000 square feet. It's one of the largest bombers in Air Force history, and it packs a deadly punch.
The B-52's greatest strength has always been its ordnance capability. It's been designed to carry really any type of weapon in the Air Force inventory.
The B-52 carries weapons all over its airframe. Each wing holds up to 9 weapons: missiles, mines, smart and laser-guided bombs. Inside, there's room for 27 more, as well as 8 nuclear cruise missiles. This gives the BUF a massive payload of different weapon configurations. The B-52 carries 70,000 pounds of weapons, more than any other plane in the Air Force arsenal. 1979, the Cold War spreads to the Middle East. The Soviets arm countries like Syria and Egypt with their most advanced weapons. Its top seller, the MiG. Israel looks to the U.S. for support. It must protect itself against the growing threat. By June 27, 1979, the Israelis operate 25 of the new American jets. The new weapon comes just in time. A few minutes before noon, 4 Syrian MiG-21s zoom towards Israeli airspace. A surprise attack. The Israelis detect the threat and alert 4 F-15s they have on routine patrol. Brigadier General Moshe Melnik was one of the Israeli Air Force's top fighter pilots for over 38 years. On that day in 1979, he's in the hot seat of an aircraft never before tried in combat.
We got a very immediate locks, radar locks on the MiGs. It was in a distance of about 30 or 25 miles, and we got permission to fire.
Melnik's heads-up display shows that the MiG is approaching fast. This is Moshe Melnik's actual video. Melnik launches one of his missiles. It misses. Now the MiGs are on high alert. The MiGs counterattack, roaring toward Melnik at 650 miles per hour. Melnik sets his sights on the MiGs, now just seconds away. This time, he turns to a missile designed specifically for the Israeli F-15s. It's called the Python 3.
This missile has a name in Hebrew called Choach. Choach is abbreviation of God forbid. God forbid that you will encounter this missile in the air. It was in range, and I pressed the trigger and I took the first shot. And this missile hit first the first MiG.
Less than 30 seconds after Melnik first got the alert, the Israeli F-15s defeat the Syrian MiGs. Moshe Melnik becomes the first pilot to show the world the lethal qualities of this new fighter. 1974, the Air Force debuts its brand new bomber, the Rockwell B-1A.
Major strategic systems like the B-52 were being replaced at a very rapid rate. It was only natural that the Air Force should start thinking about a potential replacement.
The B-1A is uniquely designed to combat advanced Soviet defenses. Adjustable wings provide increased acceleration, allowing it to fly low and fast under Soviet radar.
It had the capability to deliver nuclear weapons deep into the Soviet Union with much greater speed than the B-52.
3 separate bomb bays give it a larger nuclear payload than the bigger B-52. Its only drawback? Cost. Its $102 million price tag takes center stage in an election.
During his presidential election campaign, Jimmy Carter said that he wanted to cut the B-1 program due to its high cost.
If the B-1 program goes through, the Buff will end up in the boneyard. It looks as if the B-52's future will come down to a vote. 1976. After over 20 years in service, the B-52's fate comes down to an election.
In my opinion,
President Gerald Ford wants to build the B-1 bomber, a move that will send the Buff packing. But rival Jimmy Carter wants to keep the B-52 going.
After Jimmy Carter won the presidential election, the B-1 bomber program was canceled, and this in turn gave the B-52 a new lease on life.
We're here today with the AH-64 Delta attack helicopters, the Army's premier attack platform. The weapon system the aircraft is most known for is a 30mm cannon, which is slung underneath. It's a machine gun, essentially, that shoots cannon rounds, up to about 650 rounds per minute. When you shoot that gun, all the deck plates in the belly of the aircraft vibrate and rattle. It moves all of your organs inside you. It vibrates your HDU in your eye. It vibrates your retinas. You can feel it in your teeth. It's absolutely crazy.
If the gun doesn't get your attention, the Apache has other options.
You can see installed on the aircraft, on the outboard side, you have a rocket launcher tube. You have a Hellfire missile launcher rack. All of these can be configured and tailored specifically for the mission that the aircraft's going on.
The Apache can dish it out, and it can take it too.
Both crew stations have a ballistically tolerant seat. There's a lot of Kevlar and some ceramic built into it, as well as some Kevlar portions built into the side of the aircraft here itself. The fuel tanks of the aircraft themselves are ballistically tolerant. They'll seal up to about a 50 caliber impact. But the real advantage that they have is that they're inert with nitrogen. There's a system that takes the oxygen out of the fuel tank so that the gas itself becomes a bit of a ballistic barrier. So you'll have, at the end of some missions, you'll have bullets in the gas tank that you need to fish out, but they don't penetrate into the crew station. So that's just one more level of ballistic protection built into the aircraft. This is the most survivable, safest aircraft in the Army inventory, hands down.
June 19th, 2013, Afghanistan. A rocket attack kills 4 U.S. Army soldiers. The Taliban claims responsibility. The response is fast and furious. U.S. commanders mount an aggressive air campaign. U.S. fighters fly around the clock, watching over troops on the ground. Keeping the fighters on constant patrol is crucial, but their endurance is just 4 hours, or even less. The solution? Air-to-air refueling. For that, they rely on the KC-135.
Behind me here is the KC-135, known officially as the Stratotanker, but for those that have operated it or maintained it, pretty much just the tanker.
The KC-135 has 130 feet wingspan. It's 136 feet long and almost 4 stories tall. It can carry up to 200,000 pounds of fuel. The Stratotanker's specialty, pumping gas. There are tanks in its forward fuselage, center, back fuselage, and upper deck. There are 3 more in each wing. This flying gas tank is designed for one crucial thing: aerial refueling.
Aerial refueling is the process of taking 2 aircraft and getting them into the same spot in the sky at about the same time and joining together and then passing that fuel from the tanker to the receiver.
5-1 to contact.
1948, Berlin. Relations between Western allies and the Soviet Union take a turn for the worse. In June, Soviet forces block access to Allied-controlled areas. The Russians want the entire city under communist control. It's the first international crisis of the Cold War. World War III is a very real threat. As the months go on, the situation gets worse. The Soviets appear to have the upper hand. Then the Allies come up with a novel plan: airlift, food, milk, coal, gasoline. West Berliners need 35,000 tons of these supplies every single day. An airlift this big has never been done. The Soviets bet it never will. The Allies' plan gets off to a rocky start. Enter General William Tunner. Using a fleet of 225 C-54s, he hatches a plan to outsmart the Soviets. Tunner's airlift drops 2.3 million pounds of supplies. 11 months later, the Soviet Union lifts the blockade. Its stranglehold on West Berlin defeated. In the Air Force, fighters and bombers are the shakers, but transport aircraft are the movers. Airlift is a key part of military planning.
2012, Afghanistan. America is at war with the Taliban. Ambushes on U.S. troops are frequent and deadly. U.S. forces need around-the-clock surveillance. For that, they look to the U-2. Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Smith is a U-2 pilot with the 9th Operational Support Squadron. Over Afghanistan, something in the radio chatter catches Smith's attention.
I was listening to a convoy-type force. I started to hear some chatter of they're having vehicle problems.
7,000 miles away, in California, analysts at Beale Air Force Base use the U-2's sensors to scan for enemy chatter. The U-2's imagery reveals a group of Taliban soldiers, just moments from ambushing the unsuspecting convoy. The team must intervene fast, or coalition troops may be finished before they know what hit them. They let Smith know.
This plane's right there.
You're listening to the situation unfold. They don't know that you're there. They don't know there's bad guys around the corner.
Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Smith radios down to the troops to warn them of the impending attack.
It's like the voice of God comes down, like, who are you? How are you on my radio? And you just say, hey, I'm here, I'm watching. What I'm telling you is, get ready for an attack, lock down.
Smith scans through his radio frequencies, searching for help. He picks up 2 F-18 fighters nearby. The F-18s are only minutes away. But on his radio, Smith hears what he's been dreading.
You can hear the guys on the ground getting shot at. You can hear the gunfire. You can hear the emotion in their voice.
Just moments later, the fighters come roaring in, taking out enemy forces in a single flyby. The troops are safe, thanks to a near invisible force 70,000 feet above them. The Harrier. A marvel of modern engineering. The world's most famous vertical takeoff and landing jet.
This here is the AV-8B Harrier II. It's the Marine Corps' go-to aircraft for ground attack and close air support missions.
The Harrier is only 47 feet long. Empty, it weighs just 15,000 pounds. More than a chopper, but less than half the weight of other modern jet fighters. "23,000 pounds of thrust let the Harrier hover like a helicopter or blast forward at near supersonic speeds."
On my first flight, my instructor told me it was going to be like riding a dragon. He definitely was telling the truth.
13,000 pounds of weapons give Harrier pilots an option for any kind of fight.
The Harrier is capable of carrying a wide variety of weapons, everything from air-to-air missiles, like the AIM-9 Sidewinder, both precision-guided and conventional bombs, as well as the 25mm guns capable of shooting up to 3,600 rounds per minute. When we get there, we need to be ready to hit hard and accomplish our mission.
1995. After 3.5 bloody years, the Bosnian War finally ends. But the newly established ethnic territories leave the war-torn country on edge. American troops plan to enter through Croatia, but the American camp is completely underwater. Now the Army can't do its job. With its camp swept downriver, generals have to come up with another plan. Kapasulak Air Base, Hungary. The Chinook crew take off for Bosnia. 40 minutes after takeoff, the Chinooks reach the river. Nearly 100 bridge pieces wait for them. The Chinook's crew approach their first bridge piece. 5 feet below, ground crews scramble to hook the Chinook to its load. The soldiers work only feet from the Chinook's blades. The Chinook's twin rotors create more downwash than any other chopper. It's the equivalent of standing in the way of a Force 4 hurricane. The ground crew must scatter. The mission is in jeopardy. The Chinook's crew come up with a new plan. Hook up the bridge span from inside the Chinook. The Chinooks must now hand off the bridge to boats waiting in the river. Adding danger, they must fly their load low over the tree line. Minutes later, the Chinook hovers above the river, and watches the 12,000-pound bridge span drop into the icy waters. There's almost 100 more pieces to go. It takes hours, but the Chinooks are able to brave the weather and get the job done. It's the next morning before the bridge is fully constructed. Thanks to the Chinook's powerful lift, the bridge becomes a floating passageway for tanks, artillery, and nearly 20,000 American troops. 1981, Iraq. 10 miles south of Baghdad, French and Iraqi engineers build a nuclear reactor. They call it Osirak, after Osiris, the Egyptian god of the dead. Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein claims the reactor is for research. The Israelis suspect a more sinister purpose: making nuclear weapons.
The Israelis were bound and determined to make sure that the Iraqis never made any kind of progress in nuclear technology. They decided that they needed to bomb the nuclear reactor in Iraq.
The Israelis turned to the newest fighter in the world, the F-16 Fighting Falcon. June 7th, 6 F-16s take off from Etzion Air Base, carrying two 2,000-pound bombs each. It's a 600-mile journey to the drop point.
The F-16 flew at extremely low altitude, 150 to 300 feet. This kept the F-16s underneath the radar coverage.
12.5 miles from Osirak, the F-16s light up their afterburners. They pop up to 3,000 feet and release their bombs.
It came off brilliantly. They got 6 out of the 8 bombs within the dome of the reactor, which is extraordinary.
The raid makes headlines around the world.
Good evening. The aftershock is beginning to mount in the wake of Israel bombing a nuclear plant in Iraq.
It was such a bold, audacious attack, and there, right in the middle of it, was the F-16, actually doing the bomb dropping.
August 1990. Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein sends his army into neighboring Kuwait. Its oil fields are rich for the taking, and Hussein may have his eye on Saudi oil too. Saudi Arabia quickly gathers its allies. The 39-nation coalition is the largest since World War II. They vow to bring Hussein to his knees.
Withdraw from Kuwait or face a coalition ready and willing to employ all means necessary.
8 Apaches from the 101st Airborne Division prepare for the 200-mile flight into Iraq.
We had to take out the radar sites at 2:38 in the morning, so all the aircraft could fly through this corridor.
The Apaches take off and speed across the desert, cruising just 50 feet above the ground to avoid radar detection. There's a total blackout on navigation lights, total radio silence. If Hussein's radar detects them, they risk being shot down by the very target they've come to kill. It takes just over 2 hours for the Apaches to reach the radar towers. When they're 5 miles away, they hover for a moment, surveying their target. This is actual footage from General Cody's mission, the very first Apache strikes of Desert Storm.
When we pulled the trigger, all 4 aircraft shot at the same time.
You get 4 to 6 Hellfires en route. The time of flight's about 12 seconds. And then all of a sudden they start hitting. And when they start hitting, things start exploding pretty quickly, especially when we hit where the generators and all the fuel was.
Okay, go to flechette right here. Do it.
At about 4 kilometers, we started opening up with the rockets that had the flechette rounds, and that was to take out the air defense guns that were out in front. And then as we get closer, we'd open up with the 30 millimeter and finish off the job.
It's 4 minutes of mayhem with 100% destruction.
We put in excess of about 40 Hellfire missiles on the target, a couple hundred flechette rockets, and a lot of 30 millimeter, and then broke and flew low level back.
Destroying the radar towers opens up a piece of the sky 20 miles wide.
About 5 minutes into the flight back, we could see the jets coming in right over our head. And that's how the air war started.
Over 900 coalition aircraft make their way into Baghdad. Safe passage, courtesy of the Apache.